All right, we're back for another edition of Sunday Night AstroLive. I am your Sunday Night Astro Liver, Robert Phoenix, and welcome to the show. A little bit of a late start, but we're kind of in the time zone. I'd say roughly. How is everybody? How are you all doing? We have this blue moon, this Sagittarius moon, which was really out in force this morning. I believe it was, if I'm not mistaken, fully full at 5:45 Eastern Standard Time. For you people on the West Coast, it was 3:45, and you're probably able to still see it if you were either up that late or up that early. So anyway, we're in it. It's still happening. Got some Sag vibes. I always like the Sag vibes, a little irreverent and hopefully expansive. I'm trying to figure out what it'd be like to live with the Sag moon in the chart. I don't think I'd want to be fenced in. If I had a Sag moon, I'd want to live like in a big open space. You know, either a small place in a big open space or a really big house. Or that I could be like a global nomad. Those would be my three representations of a Sag moon. If you happen to have a Sag moon and you are in chat, maybe you can share with us what your living situation is or has been and what you prefer. That's number one, because the moon is the home, right? Generally, if the moon is the mother, the Sagittarian moon is a woman that is bigger, larger than life, right? Like you're dealing with a really big persona, and generally a generous one. You know, the one, all the kids in the neighborhood want to come over and hang out with the mom of the Sag moon. Look at that, Magdalena Munoz. My ex has a Sag moon. He lives on 55 acres of land. That's what I'm talking about. Thanks for chiming in. Absolutely. But that's what I think, right? The mom of the Sag moon, she's the one that throws the parties for the kids so that they don't go out and drink. They can do it here at home, right? Yeah. So, Charlie, you got a Sag moon? Is that what you're saying here? Is that what Charlie's saying? Grew up on a farm, Western New York, greatest soil on the planet. Born in 1957. I know 5 Sag moons, all are fenced in. That's brutal. That's brutal. I don't know what they're doing with that. I wonder if one of them is in prison. I could kind of see that, actually. If you had a Sag moon and you had access to a library and you were in prison, I think you could probably get through that. That's what I think. This moon is behind us. Kind of is. Kind of is. Blue moon, 1:45 a.m. Pacific. No limits. I'm going to sit around, going to a sound bath tonight. I have to clear my mind and focus on the moon as my light bulb for new ideas. I'll have to watch replay. All right. We'll go do that. Get sound bathed up. What does that look like? Do you sit in a room of speakers? Is it outside? How do you dip into your sound bath? I am intrigued. Crone Ranger, the moon kind of kicked my butt. Well, you are a Sagittarius, aren't you? So it's opposing your sign. All right, so here we go. Ran across some interesting Uranus and Gemini news. Supposedly Palantir was hacked. And it looks like Teal's been using it to gather blackmail data on billionaires. You know, it doesn't seem that hard, right? Like, it just doesn't seem that hard to find blackmail data on billionaires. And maybe some of them have deeply encrypted systems, but it feels like when you have a lot of money and a lot of power, you get sloppy because you get away with shit. And that's why it's easy to get blackmailed. Just my 2 cents. Oh my God, my friend is doing a sound bath here in Palm Springs. There you go. Look at that. Laugh out loud, true dad. Hey, Jamie, what's up? Good to see you. Uranus and Gemini will be my 4th starting in July. Will this transit be okay for me? Well, there's a lot to it, right? Like, what else is it doing in your chart? Is it bouncing off any other planets in your chart? Like, are you a Virgo? And does it square your Virgo sun? Are you a Sag? Does it oppose your Sag sun? Like, some of it, a lot of it depends. But I will say this. Your living situation will not be business as usual. Okay? It won't be business as usual. So I'll give you an example of a healthy Uranus. We're just going to call it Uranus. We're not going to put it in Gemini. I'll get back to Uranus and Gemini. But we're going to call it a healthy Uranus placement in the 4th house. So I used to have this client who was a really cool person. And she grew up with Uranus in her 4th house. And we talked about her life, and it turns out that her parents were dance instructors. Like, that's what they did for a living. And they had a dance studio attached to their home. So all these people would come over all the time to do dance lessons, sometimes individually, sometimes through groups. And it was, over the course of many, many years. And so they had a bit of a community, in some ways, like a little loose community. So she grew up with all these people, getting to know all these people who studied dance with her parents. And I felt like, well, that's really Uranus in the 4th house, isn't it? It's like an unusual living situation, and it does involve some kind of group activity, right? And friendships come out of it. And I thought, man, that's a really healthy version of just Uranus, because sometimes Uranus in the 4th house can be very disruptive. Like, if that's what you grew up with and you didn't have like a dance studio on your property, Uranus and Gemini, Uranus in the 4th house can be just really disruptive. Like, you never really get to be in any one place for a while, right? It's just, and I experienced that when Uranus was transiting my 4th house in Pisces. And I remember exactly what was going on. So I had married this woman, and we worked at the same company. Nobody knew we got married either, by the way, because we did in Las Vegas. And we kept this fucking thing a secret for at least 6 months. And what's interesting is that she has natally she has Venus in the eighth house. So keeping a secret about a relationship with Venus in the eighth house is easy, right? It's hidden, it's tucked away. But eventually people found out. And the company that we worked for, here's where the Uranus and Gemini part comes in. My son is born, Uranus Pisces. My son has Uranus and Pisces, right? He's a Gen Z, or like second version Gen Z, which kicks in around 2002, 2003. And so we're at this company, and this company offers us a package to move to New York because that's where the company is relocating, right? So all of a sudden we're in this Gemini vector. Like, which way do we go? Do we go east and go to New York and stay with the company, or do we wind up staying in California and finding other things to do, right? And it was a bit of a dilemma because the company that I was working for, I'd been there for 5 years, and I put a lot of sweat equity into that company, and they were just getting ready to launch in a much bigger way, right? And I love New York, and I think I love New York too much. And I felt like if we went to New York, that it would be detrimental to our marriage. I'm just being completely and utterly honest. I tend to have a very interesting relationship with New York City. So we wound up staying in California instead of going to New York. Now, remember, I've got Uranus going through my fourth house. And our living situation was kind of strange during that time. Honestly, it was kind of strange. I mean, the first place we moved lived in two places during that transit. And the first place we moved to was literally a split level place, meaning that it was a house and it had like street access, but it was up in the Berkeley Hills. And if you walk down these stairs next to the house, there was another living space below it. So it was very kind of Uranian in that way, because we were kind of sharing space with this family that lived below us, right? Which was, it was okay. They were okay people, but it started to get a little weird. Like, it was getting weird. And we started to get these electrical bills that were through the fucking roof. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Why are we, having to pay so much money? And, and I'm talking to our landlord, and, we're trying to figure it out. And yeah, I think he hired somebody from PG&E, and he said, well, there's some other kind of draw on the electricity, right? Which is very Uranian, right? And in Pisces, it's kind of leaky. So one day, I've had some weird shit happen with places. So one day I walked down to that house. It wasn't really a house. It was like a 2-bedroom apartment. And this dude, his wife, and their kid lived there. And something was going on. I forget what it was. And I remember knocking on the glass door to their place. And I don't know what prompted me to do this, but I opened up their glass door and I walked into their house, and I found that their oven was on. It was an electric oven. And I'm like, oh, this motherfucker is using the electric oven to heat his house. Like, dude, all you got to do is buy a fucking space heater. Like that's what he was doing. And he left the house that day with the electric oven on. Right. So I called up the landlord. I said, listen, man, I figured out why this PG&E shit is through the roof. Your boy downstairs is using the electric oven as a heater. Right. So that was Uranus and Pisces, right? Like, because it was like a group situation, which was Uranus, but it was also Pisces in the sense that like the energy was being depleted. It was being just drained out of the place, even though it wasn't a gas oven and it was electricity. And eventually what happened is that it facilitated those people getting booted from that place. So then we had another Uranus and Pisces moment, right? I'm just giving you the historical data on this. And at that time, my wife wanted to buy a house. So this was around 2007, I think. And I was working for this company, and I knew they were going to go out of business because they were just really poorly run. I just knew that they were toast. And she was doing really well with her job. And the job that I had was related to music. And so I could kind of do it with my eyes closed. But I'm thinking in the back of my head, like, well, what happens if this company goes belly up and, we got to make these house payments, right? So we actually wound up putting a payment. Well, we actually wound up putting an offer on this house. And it was in Berkeley. And it was actually in a pretty nice part of Berkeley. And then I just kept thinking about this millstone around my neck, which was this job. And I could just see it coming, right? Like the company folds, we've got this big house payment, and my ex-wife says, you got to go get a job. You got to start bringing money in. It doesn't matter what you do, right? It's like that's like the worst case fucking scenario for me. Worst case scenario. Because I'm just not wired that way. And I told her, I said, we need to get out of this deal. We need to pull out. We need to get our offer off the table. And don't worry, I'll find you a nice place to rent, which I did, right? And so we did that. And that was at that time, I think it was 2008. And it wasn't long after that before the housing crisis hit. Like it might have been like 2 or 3 months after that. So we would have gone right into that house right during the housing crisis. The company that I worked for did fold, and I didn't have any other prospects. I mean, could you imagine the amount of stress that would have been rippling through our lives at that time? The mortgage was, I mean, looking back on it, the mortgage wasn't too bad. I think it was like maybe around $2,800 a month. So for back then, it would have been okay. But now you got the housing crisis. Now you've got me being basically unemployed. And it's like, you got to go find a job, any job. I don't care. We need the money. Right. And I just, I'm a 2-4 projector. I don't really run that way. I don't respond to life. I'm not a generator. Right. And looking back on it, I was actually kind of ahead of the game, right? Like I kind of knew in some ways where this was going. I was able to kind of suss it out, right? Because that Uranian energy was, really at play in our lives, in my life, going through the 4th house. And eventually the marriage broke up, and, I had to go find my own place, which was, again, if you want to play like Uranus and Pisces, I lived next to a petroleum refinery. I mean, literally, I lived just down the road from a petroleum refinery. And Pisces is petroleum, it's gas. I lived in a refinery town, right? So you can see these things in your chart as they ultimately, manifest through your life. But if you have Uranus and Gemini in your fourth house, so there are a couple things that you can look at. Number one is you can look at having two homes, right? Like a home that you live in, which would be your main residence, and you'd have another residence that you could go and, like a classic example would be a snowbird, like living in Minnesota half the year and then living in maybe Texas or Arizona the other half of the year, right? Something like that. I mean, that's kind of a traditional like version of it. But there's also other versions of it too, where you just have a second home. Another interesting version is to be mobile with your home. Maybe you're tired of living with four stationary walls. And in Gemini, you want more mobility, you want more flexibility, you want to be able to maybe do the van life or something like that, right? Every now and then, also, if you have siblings with Uranus and Gemini, you or one of your siblings can wind up living for a period of time together. That could be part of it. If you have a parent that is either ill, ailing, debilitated, right? And you have to have a timeshare between you and a sibling. Uranus and Gemini could bring that into your life. And that if you have not been close to one of your siblings and all of a sudden one of your parents needs care from both of you, Uranus and Gemini comes into play. And it's like, oh, well, guess what? We now have this thing in our lives that we have to figure out, right? It's like a disruption. So there's a lot of different variations with Uranus and Gemini. And the thing with, and I've always said this about the outer planets, of all the outer planets, we're going to use Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto as outer planets. Of all the outer planets, Uranus is the one that has the most accessibility, right? Like if you're creative and you're willing to deconstruct or take the road less traveled, right? Uranus will reward you. Uranus, the energy of Uranus, say, good job, right? Good. You didn't hang on, you found a creative solution, and you may have to find more creative solutions. And that's the way it is. But if you do that, Uranus can be really interesting. I think of the three outer planets, it's the most accessible. If you're willing to dance with chaos and maybe take the lead, Uranus can be very creative and invigorating. Neptune, you just have to surrender. That's it. You just surrender, you let go, right? You try not to get too egotistical or get in your way, get in the way of life's processes too much, right? Go with the flow, surrender. Those are all very Neptunian kinds of strategies to deal with Neptune influence and transit. Pluto might be the most difficult, obviously, because when Pluto comes to town, your shit is going to get fucked up. And you don't know where it's going to take you. It could be really powerful and transform you in a way that is kind of unforeseen. I'm having a bit of a deja vu moment, by the way, for some reason. I'll give you a Pluto transit on the sun example. Caitlin Clark. So I believe Caitlin Clark is either 0 or 1 degree Aquarius in her chart. And she's at Pluto, like as soon as Pluto hit her sun, Caitlin Clark became a household name, right? She played well in college, and she'd gotten this reputation of being unlike any other female college basketball player we'd ever seen. She gets the WNBA. She has a tremendous first season. It's Caitlin Clark mania. But things start to happen to Caitlin Clark during that first season. And, how do I say this without, somebody saying that I'm doing a racist dog whistle? Caitlin Clark started to get beaten up by the black women of the WNBA. It's true. You just go back and watch the tape. They started to beat her up, right? They didn't like her. I mean, and these fouls were egregious. And in many cases, they have had long-term effects on Caitlin Clark. And that was Pluto, right? I mean, Pluto has a dark side. Pluto has this kind of underworld aspect. And, I could just see like these group chats from these WNBA chicks saying, we got to get her ass, right? We got to get her ass. We got to show her who runs this league, because in a lot of ways, it's also very much like a sorority or something. And you got to go through like pledge week. And I'm sure all those chicks kind of like set it up like that. And Caitlin Clark was really good that first season, but they beat the living hell out of her, right? And then there was all this kind of race controversy that was going on in a lot of ways. And I mean, let's be honest, right? The WNBA is basically a lesbian league. It's just the way it is. It's mostly, it's always had that reputation. You go to a WNBA, I don't care if you went 10 years ago, right? It was all about the Scissor Sisters. But they weren't that radical. It was just their thing. But that's where they all matriculated to. And Caitlin Clark happened to be straight, right? Some people say she's a dude. I don't know, whatever, right? But she happened to be straight. She was straight. She was white. She was bringing all the fans in because people didn't give a shit about the WNBA until Caitlin Clark showed up. And here comes Pluto, right on her sun. And Caitlin Clark has basically been destroyed. This is what Pluto has done to her, right? Initially, it was really powerful, right? Initially, it was like Caitlin Clark was like a nuclear explosion on the sports world. But she has been beaten up psychologically and emotionally abused. And her body can't take it. She's running around with a back brace. She has a special cushion that she sits on. She's changed her game. I think that there's been some psychological scarring. She, whines and cries at every foul now. Like you can see this. Like this is the heavy side of Pluto. You want to see somebody going through a Pluto sun transit right in front of our very eyes. It's Caitlin Clark. And she's kind of being destroyed. Can she resurrect herself and resurrect her career? I don't know. You know, the WNBA got a brand new CBA because of Caitlin Clark. It was because of Caitlin Clark that they all got pay raises. It was all because of Caitlin Clark that they all fly private now. They've got their own, the teams have their own jets. Right before they would fly on just, regular flights like everybody else. And all that stuff happened. The collective bargaining agreement happened when Caitlin Clark started bringing more butts into the stands. She literally transformed, again, if we're playing with Pluto, she literally transformed the WNBA. People started talking about it. People started watching it. And then the heavy side of Pluto came in. Right. And especially when it went retrograde, because her career started to go backwards. And now she's, hurt most of the time. Or if she's not hurt most of the time, she's impaired to the point where she doesn't have the same game anymore. So Pluto is a motherfucker, right? Pluto will destroy you, right? Pluto, and you can't do deals with Pluto either. I've always said that. You don't do deals with Pluto. It's like you just deal with it. And then whatever's left over, right? Like, we'll find out who Caitlin Clark is when Pluto's at about 5-6 degrees and it's off of her sun. We'll see who she is and how she's responded to, like, the intensity of being in the WNBA and a bunch of these women who, were just really fucking jealous of her and her popularity and who are you, bitch, right? That's what it came down to. All leagues are Aquarian. They're all Aquarian because they're comprised of teams. Teams, are part of a league. It's all a group experience. So it's all Aquarian. Anyway, there's your breakdown of the outer planets. You have to with Pluto, like, it's a lesson about power. How do you deal with power when Pluto hits your sun? Because when Caitlin Clark came into the league, she was really fucking powerful. She was better than everybody else. She put seats in the butts in the stands. Right? How did she deal with her power? Not very good. Not very good. And if I'm not mistaken, the sun in Aquarius is in its detriment, right? It's in its detriment. Because actually it's in its detriment because the sun in Leo is in its own sign, right? So the sun in Aquarius is in its detriment. So power and Aquarius are a really interesting combination, right? It's a very interesting, because the idea with Aquarius is the dispersal of power. Like, the team is going to have the power, or the community is going to have the power, or the league is going to have the power. Not one person is going to have the power. So when that happened to her, that wasn't a really great transit, right? Because it has kind of destroyed her. You look at somebody who's a Leo and has a Leo, like if you were a Leo and you're a baby boomer, at some point you're going to have Pluto transit your sun at a certain point in your life. And you probably would have had, a powerful and kick-ass time. Not every sign deals with power in the same way. Some signs, like in Caitlin Clark's play, situation, it'd be like, well, we could be powerful. The league could be powerful. The team could be powerful. Let's spread the power around. But the league didn't want one person to be powerful. They're like, fuck that bitch. We're going to take her down. Right? So it's always interesting when Pluto goes into a sign that isn't always geared towards the effect of Pluto. Do you know what I mean? Like even when Trump, this is interesting. So when Trump was inaugurated, me and David and Evan, we did a big show about it. And I just kept thinking, this motherfucker is going to be inaugurated and the sun's going to be at, what was it, 0 or 1 Aquarius, and Pluto was right on it. And I just kept thinking about that with Trump, right? Like, how is this going to affect this guy? And he's not a Leo, but he's a Leo rising with Mars in the first house. And I just thought to myself, this dude he's really, really going to go for the ring of power, right? And if you look back in that show, I had a thumbnail of Trump as Caesar. That's how I saw this inauguration. That's how I saw this Sun-Pluto conjunction, right? That he was literally stepping into on that inauguration, where he used no Bible, by the way. And if you fast forward to where we are now, and I know that this is a very subjective litmus, but you'd have to ask yourself, has Trump been a reasonable steward of power from that moment? From the moment that he was inaugurated, has he been a reasonable steward of power? I have my own opinion on that. I don't believe he has. But then again, if you are a particular group, okay, and we're talking about Aquarius here, if you're a particular group and Trump is representing your group, then I think he's been an outstanding steward of power. Absolutely outstanding. If you happen to be a Zionist or you happen to be an Israel firster, if you happen to be in the Miriam Adelson, circle of influence, Trump has done a really great job with power, right? It just depends on how you define the group, because that's what we're talking about with Aquarius is the group. Man, he's been a lightning rod of fucking power. But if you step outside of that group and you deal with other groups, you could say that he's misused, abused, manipulated power, right? I mean, you could make a case for that. But for a particular group, right, he found the power. He went to the power source. He jacked right the fuck in. But it just had to do with a particular group. This reminds me of when George Bush was president, George Bush too. And people would say, oh, he's doing such a terrible job. He's doing such a shitty job. I said, no, he's not. Are you kidding me? He is the best president that those people who wanted him to be president, who got him elected, who fucked with the vote count in Florida just so he could take the reins. He's doing a great fucking job for them. It just depends on, what your perspective is, right? For us, he doesn't give a shit about us. So of course he's not doing a good job. But for them, he's the best fucking president ever, right? The same could be said for Trump. And you go back and you look at that inauguration, unlike any other inauguration, if it's the right group, he's tapped into the power, right? Which clearly, I think, when I say the right group, I mean the right group for him. Maybe not the right group for the rest of us, right? So Pluto's really interesting in that regard. Really, 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 really interesting. And it was, when Trump got elected, he started to talk about the golden age, that this is going to be the golden age. And it felt very Aquarian in a lot of ways, didn't it? Like we were going to have flying cars and, we'd be teleporting to Mars and, Elon Musk would, have like, really cool kombucha bars on Mars. And, it kind of felt like that's where the world was, that's the vision of the world that he was selling, and I distinctly remember he was talking about the 250th anniversary of the country and that there were going to be great fairs all over the United States, right? Kind of, reminiscent of the great world's fairs that happened in the 1800s. He was talking about that stuff. Like every, we're going to have these victory cities and like, this is all like Pluto and Aquarius shit. And where are we now? It's what, May 31st. I bet you can't wait to go to your local state version of the Golden Age Fair that Trump was promising on Inauguration Day. They can't even hold together a group of has-beens for this concert that they're trying to put together for July 4th at the White House. They just keep dropping like flies. And what's really weird about that is I'm shocked at humanity. I really am. I'm really shocked at humanity. This is some Pluto and Aquarius shit, right? It's like, oh, I used to listen to Martina McBride. I played her song at my daughter's wedding. And now I'll never be able to listen to her the same way again because she won't be playing at President Trump's party because she doesn't want to get badmouthed and blacklisted. She's not a true patriot. I can't believe I'm hearing this shit. Right? She's, she might have been a big deal at one point, but who gives a fuck about Martina McBride? She's nobody. She's not relevant. I'm sorry. She might have had some nice music, right? She's not relevant. I mean, all the people that they lined up for this thing. The guy from Poison, Bret Michaels. Oh, I hate Bret Michaels. He's not a patriot. He decided you know what? It's his fucking right to not play there. Okay? It's his right. He doesn't have to play there. I mean, and it's like, is this the best America has to offer? Like Young MC. Where the hell has Young MC been for the last 30 years? I don't know. But I saw him listed there as somebody who's supposed to play there. Like he had one song, Bust a Move. Made a bunch of money, went to USC and studied film. Like, what the fuck happened to him? Well, and then I saw Milli Vanilli. There's only one guy left. Wouldn't it just be Milli or Vanilli and not Milli Vanilli? And that guy couldn't even fucking sing anyway. Like, what is going on with this country? It's like all these people are just turning on all these like, B-, C+ casino and country fair singers. They've now become the enemy. Go burn all your Martina McBride records. That's a statement right there. This is the State of the Union. This is what happens, right, when Pluto goes into Aquarius. We find people going into factions. We find them going into tribes, right? And really, the sort of the darker version of it, right? It feels a lot like Lord of the fucking Flies. And with the retrograde, we're seeing what people are capable of. And you could say, well, it's just bot farm interaction. And yes, some of it is, but some of it is people who have been programmed, right, to respond with this kind of volatility. And it's honestly, it's fucking embarrassing. There was a time when it was a big fucking deal when Arthur Fiedler and the Boston Pops Symphony Orchestra played at the White House on the 4th of July. That was a big deal. And you had fireworks. My father used to have 8-track cassettes of Arthur Fiedler and the Boston Pops. I love that shit. I think Arthur Fiedler is underrated, to be honest with you. Unfortunately, he's not around anymore. But it's like, that was a big deal, When the Super Bowl first started getting going, the halftime show was nothing. Mike Curb singers up with people. Like, they got really jazzy, like I think in Super Bowl 3 or 4 when Al Hurt decided to play at halftime his Dixieland trumpet, right? Like, it was not a big deal. It was just not a big deal. But we had certain like performers that were part of the institution. They were institutional performers, Arthur Fiedler being one of them. It would be awesome if, and I get it, and I get into like debates, and they're not always pleasant ones, between the left and the right and the arts, right? Like, there are some people on the right who are artistic and they value the arts. There's that Italian guy, I forget his name, Scott LaFaro, I think his name is. I like that guy. He's a good artist, right? I think that's his name. I could be wrong. But in most cases, like, your most artistic people are generally going to be, more lefty or progressive or something along those lines, right? I mean, generally speaking, that's just the way it is. You go to a town that has an art scene, and the problem now with that is that it's just been infected by political correctness. Like, the people who are going to get the art grants are the groups that are, the most radical, or they're like, making art questioning the statement of identity, and that shit. Like the left has just taken it to this extreme where it's like, really, but at least they have some investment in art, right? Like, the right could generally care less about art. They don't give a fuck, generally speaking. But what I'm getting to is that wouldn't it have been great, like, if we could have found a composer, a modern composer. I don't know, is John Adams still alive? And I'm not talking about John Adams, the old John Adams. John Adams, the minimalist, right? And if you could just get them out of their political brain. Philip Glass. How about Philip Glass? And you create like a score for America. Like Aaron Copland. Aaron Copland would do stuff like that. And you would incorporate, these themes, right, for America in this sort of massive and big idea for like a 2.5-hour score. And then you bring like dancers, and you bring like, it could be really cool, right? Like, that's what they should fucking do. But the problem is nobody wants to be associated with Trump. So if you're a composer, do you really want to be associated with Trump? No, you probably don't. So you're not gonna get anybody of that caliber. You're just not. You get Kid Rock, if you're lucky. You get Kid Rock, and it's really unfortunate, Like, I'd love to see Bobby McFerrin, who is a composer and a director or conductor. Bobby McFerrin, go create a score for the 250th anniversary. Collaborate with some people. Philip Glass is still around. John Adams, I think, is still around. I mean, there's lots of composers. Hell, you could get John fucking Williams. I think John Williams is still around. He'll work for anybody, right? Anyway, and a lot of this is a byproduct of this Pluto in Aquarius. Like, we're in a time where there really no longer is a government. I don't know if you've noticed that or not. Have you noticed that? There really is no government anymore, right? Once Pluto got out of Capricorn, it was done. Like, we're over that government shit, right? Now it's kind of like, oh, we're just going to have these massive bills, and inside these massive bills, we're going to have all this pork and all this language. And you would say, well, it's always been that. Well, not quite, right? Now it's just like we have these massive bills, and the government gets close to defaulting on, whatever level of the budget that it's at, and everybody panics and everybody runs around like a chicken with their head cut off, and eventually they cut through it, and then they sign these massive, big, beautiful bills, and that's it. And then everything else from there is like executive orders, right? I mean, there really is no government anymore. You have this whatever you think of Massey or what happened in Kentucky. You got, what was it, $30 million? $30 million thrown at this one guy in this inconsequential sort of area of Kentucky just to defeat him. That's not government. That's a putsch. That's what that is. That's a putsch. And we don't have a representative government. Now I'm reading that there's this bill that's in place that's going to bind the U.S. Army with the Israeli Army. Right? Have you guys seen this? It's like, I believe it's connected to the next version of the NDAA, which is, of course, their big spying bill. And it's like, oh, yeah, we're going to be linked up with the Israelis from here on out. Right? So who are we even as a country anymore? We've lost the plot. We've totally lost the plot. And you can just see this when Pluto in Capricorn was over. It was like whatever started in 1776, when they started signing that document, it was over. It's over, Jack. And what we've got now, you tell me what we have now. It is not a government of the people, by the people, for the people at all. You can forget about that. We're already kind of living in these city states, right? Like, you've got Mamdani in New York, and he's got his plans for New York. You'll see some of these other mayors, and who knows what's going to happen in LA. Maybe Spencer Pratt wins, or Karen Bass, but you can start to see, right? Like, we are not operating as a country. They just had this big meeting up in Frisco, Texas. And there's a very, very large Indian community that lives in Texas now. And I'm not talking Comanche or Apache, right? I'm talking Indian. And there is this one woman, she's kind of gone viral. She's at a Frisco City Council meeting, and she says that we're not going to put on cowboy hats and cowboy boots, and we find your culture revolting, and we are not going to assimilate. I mean, this is really like the message that's being sent now. And it's because of the overwhelming amount of people and the numbers that allow any group, right? Any group to have a collective voice and feel like they're starting to have more of an influence just based on population than the other people around them. I was, I remember, and this trial should be starting soon. It was the kid, what was his name? Austin Metcalf. the kid that got stabbed up in, I think it was Frisco, Texas, if I'm not mistaken. And he got stabbed by that black kid. And I remember like looking at the parents of the kid who stabbed Austin Metcalf. And I looked at his address. Not that I was going to go stalk him or anything, but I looked at all the people that, you can do this, right? You can just go online and figure out who lives where, right? I looked at all the people that lived around this family, and they were all either Indian or Chinese. This is in Frisco, Texas. Most of them are professionals. They're either in the medical field or they're somewhere in the software field. I don't know how these people got this fucking house. This was before they did the GoFundMe. They were already living there. And if you had seen where I was down in the rabbit hole with this whole thing. And if you'd seen where they had been living before, it's like, it was a major leap forward. Let's put it that way. But I'm just giving you a demographic view of who was around them. And so now, like, we're at this point where it's like, what is America anymore? Right? Like, what are we? And it really feels like, especially with Pluto and Aquarius, it's the groups that have the most power that are going to be the ones that are going to determine what this country looks like and how it evolves. That's what it feels like. It feels like we're falling into, to some degree, into more tribalism, certainly more enclaving, right? There's not a lot of assimilation happening. We've got Hindu cities in Texas with giant statues of Hanuman. It's all happening, right? It's all, and we're having these little principalities and territories. You got little Somalia up in Minnesota, right? And it's very Pluto and Aquarius. It's the power of the group. And a lot of these groups that we're talking about are very strong in terms of their traditions, in terms of their ability to sort of, I'm brown and I'm proud. Right? I'm brown and I'm proud. I'm Indian and I'm proud of it. They are. They're very proud of it. Should be. Hey, why not? Right? It's your right. You get a bunch of white people sitting around going, hey, we're white, we're proud. What's going to happen there? Well, I'm sorry, but you're gonna need to reassess that. Right? This Pluto and Aquarius is really interesting. It's kind of like, even when Jackson Dart, who plays quarterback for the New York Giants, he introduced Trump. I don't know what he introduced him for. He introduced Trump, right? But it was like all of a sudden he had a guy on his team, Abdul Carter. Hey man, you don't really speak for all of us. Like, fuck off, dude. He just introduced the president. It wasn't like he was, extolling his leadership virtues, right? And then all of a sudden there's all these people in Abdul Carter's corner, and getting real tribal about it, right? And it's just like, we've really lost the plot. In a perfect world with Pluto and Aquarius, we would be transformed into a group whose interests are joined together by some common cause, and that each individual would have their own kind of unique ability, and they'd find their niche, right? Or maybe be part of like an organelle, of a greater body, and they'd fit in, right? There'd be this sort of like constellation of influence with everyone and work perfectly, right? And there's still a chance that we can pull that sucker off, right? But it's these retrograde moments with Pluto and Aquarius that you need to pay attention to, because that's when you see the darker side of it. That's when you see this sense of like, oh no, we're not a part of it. No, we're going in the other direction, right? That's where we're headed. We're not doing this, right? So, and that, that's where Pluto is now. Pluto's retrograde now. But I just feel like it's kind of sad. Like there was a time when Leonard Bernstein was alive, right? As a composer, Bernstein was great with this, sort of fusion of like Broadway and modern classical music. He was really good at that shit. By the way, Leonard Bernstein was wild, right? He was a wild man. Drugs, fucking, men, women, booze. He was a wild man. But you could commission Leonard Bernstein, say, hey, Lenny, we've got the 250th anniversary coming. Can you do something for us? Can you write a score for America? Can you do that? Bernstein would have been able to pull it off in his sleep, in a stupor, on Fire Island. So, but we don't have that anymore. This is one of the things about America. And I don't know about the rest of the world. I can't speak for the rest of the world. But it's one of the things about America that in many ways is, lamentable. We don't have great composers. We don't have great art. Everybody's thinking about Disclosure Day with Spielberg, and maybe that's the height of great art now and great direction in America, leading towards some other kind of social phenomena that we're on the cusp of. Anyway, there's my opening rant. And we have a lot more to cover. We have a lot to talk about with Gemini. Thank you, Aaron T40. I hope I answered your question about Uranus and Gemini. Let's see. What else we have here? Aside from reading last week, check your email. Drusilla, which email are you? If somebody wants to get a hold of me with via email, you can reach me at robert@robertphoenix.com. You can also either call me or text me via the number that is listed in the show notes. So let me repeat that once again. If you've signed up for a reading and you want to get my attention, robert@robertphoenix.com. Okay. And I look forward, Drusilla, to connecting with you. Let's see. The AI is going to have the data on all of them. Can it be in a positive eventually? Maybe. Let's see. What else we have here? Oh, Sedona Angels movie. Congratulations. I think Uranus is going through my 7th house. You said my 10th house. Uranus in your 7th house. Yeah, you're Scorpio rising, right? Yeah. Uranus in the 7th house. Not always the easiest transit. It reminds me of Stephen Stills, right? If you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. Yes, the light bulb. I remember the light bulb part. Did you? Oh, Charlie, you're preaching to the crop. You're preaching to the choir. I'm right there with you. Sound bath is indoor singing bowls and other methods. Light coating, angelic ceiling. I love that. Bathe up. Let's see. Oh my God, I know about an 8th house Venus. They can keep some secrets. Let's see. Pathocracy wants a techno-feudal dystopia, but it has a significant obstacle in an economic class that populates our suburbs and neighborhoods with single-family homes under urbanized dystopianism. Austin is saying hi from Nashville. Hi, Austin. Yeah, let's try to keep it cool in chat. We don't want anybody banned, right? We do not want anybody banned or timed out. Aaron says, interesting interpretation. I had to move in temporarily with my mother. It's been a roller coaster. So I'm ready to be back on my own. Now Uranus will be on my IC and Venus. Oh, maybe you won't be alone. Charlie, come on, man. I'm going to put you in a timeout. I got to put you in a timeout, Charlie. You can't. Michael's a good dude. How about those people who flush paper towels down the toilet, wipe their number 2 on paper towels, and toss them smeared in cock issues in trash cans? People don't use paper toilet to wipe. I'm not sure if I have any comments on that. Let's see. What else we have here? Jenna Fun. I've got Gemini at my 4th. And this is exactly what I've been thinking about. Van life. There you go. Get yourself a good self-defense weapon or 2. Let's see. What else do we have here? Oh, 10th house perfection year. Rafi's going to take off. He's going to take off. When Pluto conjuncted my Venus in Aqua at 5, my relationship ended. Yep. Pluto will do that. Pluto will definitely do that. Definitely. How about spineless techies who show transhumanism as an inevitability that fails to realize how dark, dehumanized, insane, and evil their goals actually are? Some of them may actually realize how dark and evil their goals actually are. I think some of them are clearly complicit, Vance. Same thing for did the LPGA go? What's the L for in the LPGA? I wonder. Let's see. What else we have here? The point, certainly exercise it, yeah. Let's see. I guess our friend Rosie's going through something. Rosie, you're going to be okay. You're going to be fine. Let's see. I just think she doesn't want to get murdered. You're probably right. I think that's some Caitlin Clark. Young MC became old Mr. Cranky. Follow-up question the Friday show. What happens if Trump implodes before Vance fades away? They can keep the Trump thing going. They can keep it going. They have plenty of. They fucking ran Biden for 4 years. Okay, we don't even to this day we don't even really know the full extent as to Operation Biden. I mean, it was crazy. Like one guy's bigger, one guy's smaller. We see the flap of a mask. I mean, come on. They did that for 4 years. If they need to keep Trump somehow public until this Vance thing gets cleared up, they can clearly do it. I'm on record. I believe that JD Vance will be out by July 15th. July 15th I'm going with July 15th as the day. That's the day. And the reason why is because he has to be around for the 250th celebration. You have to have the vice president there. But after that, he's done. He's done. And I just don't think Trump has much longer. He does not look good at all. Right. And I know that they were talking about, and we've looked at his chart. He's got Saturn going through the fucking eighth house. And it's going to start retrograding. So he's not going to get stronger. He's going to get weaker. And that Saturn's going to retrograde. It's going to go back into opposition with his Neptune. And he already has the Neptune opposition. He's not going to make it. And you can just tell, just look at him. Look at his hands. He's got all this bruising up under his ears. And he looks horrible. Absolutely horrible. And, and I said this on Friday's show. If you're Miriam Adelson and Benjamin Netanyahu and Paul Singer, don't you want a younger, more vital version of Trump? And Marco Rubio will do everything that they tell him to do. Everything. He'll be compliant. Although if I were them, I would be a little wary of Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio seems like the kind of guy that you may think that he's on your team, right? But he might show you something a little different. And I'm not holding out hope that, Marco Rubio is going to be Che Guevara or anything like that. But I could just see that with him, right? Like there's a part of Marco Rubio that ultimately I don't think he's an on guy, and that he'll do what he's told, in a context where it makes him feel trusted, right? Like he'll do it that way. But then once he gets to a certain point, once he gets to a level of power, that's a whole different thing. It'll be interesting to see how Rubio responds to that. And if he plays the same game that he's been playing and being Mr. Indispensable. Let's see. This is so true. Political correctness kills creativity, 100%. I'm with you on this as well. No longer serves the good, the true, the beautiful. Exactly. Love Aaron Copland and Philip Glass. They're two great American composers. Funny enough, one of my favorite composers is Marty O'Donnell, is right and running for a position of public office. Well, that's cool. David Culross wrote a symphony tribute to Gerald Ford for the Grand Rapids Symphony. These artists exist, not as many as they used to be. But, I mean, I really feel like that's where we need to go. These two-bit performers who just aren't really all that interesting anymore. Like, why? Like, that's our legacy? Look to the future, man. Let's see. Government has outlived its usefulness. I'm with you, Peter. I'm with you. Don't be demoralized, be decentralized. I like that. Catherine Evans, same thing happened in Australia, New Zealand, all over the Western world. They were buying up businesses from locals for inflated values. In the middle of bumfuck. Let's see. Modern art is one part propaganda, 2 parts money laundering. Well, it depends on the modern art. I think it depends on the modern art. I would consider Philip Glass a modern artist, and I wouldn't say it's propaganda or money laundering. Steve Reich, another one of my favorite modern composers. I don't think it's money laundering, or I'm sure some of it exists, but like what? Hunter Biden. Let's see. Love Bernstein. Let's see. What else do we have here? Ironically, the Indians bitching about Texas, but the indigenous Texans will be the first to lose their jobs to AI. That's true. Yeah. Bernstein wrote a mass. It is dark and uncomfortable. I remember that. I remember he wrote a mass. That's not a guy I think I'd want writing a mass, because Lenny was dark. Don't forget Gershwin. Of course, Gershwin was great. Be proud of your skin. Be like proud of your Halloween outfit. That is really funny. Really, really funny. Let's see. Charlie got banned. Oh, Charlie's long gone. Okay, I put him in timeout. I guess we 86'd him, huh? All right. Rand is from Canada. Hi, Rand. We were literally seeing the death of Republic and rise of empire. I have no problem with that at all. My dad died when Saturn went through my 8th house. That's a fit, for sure. That means his underworld energy is coming in, and he is Pluto Aquarius president for 250-year return. The underworld energy, definitely. It's also the exposition of secrets. Rubio's a weasel. Yes, he is a weasel. He's not a weasel to be, I don't think he's a weasel to be underestimated. He's not a weasel to be underestimated. I also love Philip Glass. Aaron Copland really captured the spirit of America, didn't he? He really did. John Williams put together a great piece. Yeah, John Williams is somebody you could probably. How old is John Williams? Let's find out. He's 94 years old. Holy shit. 94. He was born on February 8th, so he's an Aquarian, 1932. He's in pretty good shape. What's he doing now? 94. Wow. I wonder if he has any chops left. Yeah, I don't think John Williams is doing a whole lot right now. I don't think he's doing a whole lot. I think John Williams is taking it easy. But it's great that he's still around. Wow, 94. Let's see. Simon. Paul Simon. Paul Simon's a great songwriter. Totally great songwriter. All right, let's get into some of this Uranus and Gemini stuff. So I was listening to this interview. Sonny Rollins, yeah, he did live to be 98. I think so. Yeah. And Sonny Rollins passed away last week. A true giant. I was listening to this interview with this guy on Nino Rodriguez's show. And he was talking about like the data centers, right? And what one of the many roles of the data center will be. And there's always been this kind of ongoing narrative that everything you do, say, purchase, you know, whatever it is, right? It goes into a digital version of you. Like there is a digital double of who you are. And the digital double is used for simulation, right? It's used to understand what you would do in any given real-time situation. So let's say, for instance, there was a quarantine in your area and they started to do like house to house sweeps or something like that. They would know who lives in that area. That's number one, easily. And number two, they would have a profile on everybody. And number three, they would have the ability to generally predict how you would react during a situation along those lines. And therefore, they could somehow manage your input or manage your output, whatever it is, right? And that they've been doing this for a very long period of time, that we have these virtual doubles. And so I was really interested in looking into that. And there's some, I wouldn't call them fascinating, but there are business models that are kind of mind-blowing, right? That like this is what they're working on so that it can be incorporated into your personal life and professional life. Let me show you this one. This one's really, really interesting. And it really brings up like questions about self, who we are, what we do, how we interface with the world around us. So this is about digital doubles, and it's really fascinating, right? So I'm going to read this. Trained on our most intimate data, the next generation of AI models will be deeply personal. Modem collaborated with Chan Wu Lee, HCI designer at the Royal College of Art, to explore how our identities evolve when lifelike simulations begin to communicate on our behalf. Digital Doubles imagines a future where our avatars become agents, extending our virtual presence into the uncanny valley and beyond. So the concept here, right, is that there are other versions of you that are digital that can do certain things while the so-called real you is out doing something else, right? And this is an actual like business model that's being worked on. Let me go a little bit deeper here. You may not know it, but you have a twin. This invisible double lives in your pocket, silently surveying every purchase and post, logging your private and public interactions with the cloud. It's the you in For You page, a homunculus of accumulated attention. It is to you, it is to this twin, not you, that the social media platforms tailor their advertisements and influence campaigns. Let me read that again. This is really interesting, right? You may not know it, but you have a twin, This invisible double lives in your pocket, silently surveying every purchase and post, logging your private and public interactions with the cloud. It's the you in For You page, a homunculus of accumulated attention. It is to this twin, not you, that social media platforms tailor their advertisements and influence campaigns. As Douglas Coupland puts it, the extreme self, this dematerialized parallel is neither good nor evil, neutral or chaotic. It's just machines telling other machines that you recently purchased a peak knit polo shirt in tones flattering to your skin at Abercrombie and Fitch. That is to say, consumer behaviors, even in the aggregate, don't paint a realistic portrait of a person. At best, they form a garish caricature of who we are. But this stands to change as small, powerful, on-device AI becomes more efficient and powerful, trained on our data, behaviors, and tastes. The next level, the next generation of AI models would be highly personalized. Already, Google Assistant can make phone calls on its users' behalf using a realistic generated voice complete with ums and pause breaks. And using apps like Captions and Big View, content creators can generate AI twins to help them produce social media videos. Extrapolated, this technology is poised to transform the fragmentary shadow selves into something far more uncanny, robust digital doubles, capable of interacting with the world on our behalf in the name of productivity. These avatar agents might soon manage our daily tasks, present themselves convincingly to others in our stead, and even anticipate our future actions. Are we ready to meet our doubles? And do we even want to? Like, this is a really, really, really interesting idea. So it would be kind of like, all right, I really want to take Sunday night off, but I have enough data amassed with all of my shows that I could pour it into this AI, and this AI could then project a digital representation of me for 2 hours, right? And I may not be able to interact with you. I may just be able to talk for 2 hours straight, but it would be a compendium of everything that I've kind of done, right? And I don't think we're too far away from that. And I feel like we're really on the verge of that. Let me read you this next paragraph. The augmented self. It's a productive day for the CEO and his digital doubles. CEO Keith Prime reads the Surf Report with his morning paste of sea moss and reishi. He has stand-up meetings in 5 time zones today, but none are serious enough to warrant his presence. His doubles can speak for him. The ocean looks good, strong swells, temperatures below 80, bacteria levels tolerable. As Keith Primes closes the surf camp, Keith too pings him with some mock-ups, generating images of himself in the boardroom. He picks one where he looks tired and slightly unkempt, the sign of a hardworking founder. Nobody wants to see him glowing from his days on the beach. He chooses a healthier looking alt to reskin Keith 3, his dating profile. A few waves before noon, enough time for the doubles to get him a lunch date. The notion that AI must be given unfettered access to our intimate lives in order to become truly useful to us is already being acted upon across Silicon Valley. Technology companies are rushing to build AI into their offerings at a system level where they can train our personal data to act on our daily lives. The Windows 11 operating system comes with Recall, an AI tool with photographic memory of snapshots it regularly takes of its user's desktop. And in 2025, Apple will launch Apple Intelligence, an on-device AI that will draw from personal emails, texts, and photos to help users write better emails and get things done effortlessly. The promise of these technologies is that they will automate away the mundane, busy work of answering emails, responding to texts, sorting through photos, and scheduling meetings. Someday, according to Zoom CEO Eric Yuan, digital doubles may even attend meetings on our behalf, leaving their human counterparts to tackle higher value creative work. Whitney Wolfe Herd, the founder of Bumble, promises something similar for dating, with AI concierges vetting romantic matches on users' behalf. Then you don't have to talk to 600 people, she explains. It will scan all of San Francisco for you and say, these are the 3 people you really ought to meet. What Yuan, Herd, and other tech industry optimists propose is a world in which digital doubles sweat the small stuff so that we can be present for bigger, more important things. But their seemingly contradictory predictions beg the question, in the future, will we automate work in order to focus on our personal lives, or will we automate our personal lives so that we can spend more at work? The promise of simultaneous productivity and leisure is how automation has been sold to us since the days of the Jacquard loom, but we can never escape work. Just as programming computers supplanted manual calculation or maintaining industrial machinery replaced craft, managing our doubles may well become a new form of labor. At the same time, the normalization of enhanced productivity may only accelerate a race to produce more and more content, to be effectively everywhere all at once. Further, if we relegate posting work meetings and bad dates exclusively to our digital doubles, how long will it take for our virtual and real identities to drift apart? As Marshall McLuhan once observed, every extension is an amputation. Just as our ability to write by hand, read maps, and memorize information has atrophied alongside the rise of keyboards and dictation, GPS navigation, and the web, we may eventually cede small talk, writing, decision-making, and critical reading to our doppelgangers at our peril. Ricky just received a video call from her wife, Layla, who is in Dubai for a biotech conference. Before that, it was Shanghai to close the deal. Before that, Tanzania. The company is always sending Layla somewhere new. In fact, it's been months since she's been at home at all. Ricky jokes she might as well be a double. Remember when you went to Costa Rica last March, when that freak hurricane wiped out the coast? Maybe it wiped you out too. It'd be a lot cheaper for the company to pay for a double than a pension. Ha ha. The Leela on screen says too quickly. For the time being, our digital double sits squarely in the uncanny valley. Although social media is already flooded with deep fakes, bots, and AI-generated imagery, it's still possible for discerning viewers to distinguish between real and generated content. But their critical capacity is unevenly distributed, as anyone with overly credulous parents or grandparents on Facebook knows, and its window of usefulness is closing. Soon, it will be impossible to distinguish between a human and their digital agent or agents, throwing nearly all online interactions further into a miasma of deniability and mistrust. Of course, the popularity of dating simulators and AI girlfriends is any indication. It's likely that many users content with their strictly virtual relationships won't care. In some cases, the verisimilitude of a bot might be its primary objective. Eugenia Kudya, the founder of the AI chatbot Replica, was initially motivated to build her product by the death of a close friend, Roman Mazurenko. Trained on a corpus of Mazurenko's text messages, the original chatbot was designed to extend its personality into a digital afterlife as realistically as possible. This raises the question, what happens to our digital doubles after we die? Already, platforms struggle to responsibly store the legacy accounts of their dead users. It's not hard to imagine that our digital doubles, once formed, will similarly persist, impose ethical problems beyond the grave. A double might serve as a memorial or a way for our loved ones to continue to spend time with us as Laurie Anderson has admitted doing with a chatbot modeled after her late partner, Lou Reed. So Laurie Anderson has created a Lou Reed chatbot that she interacts with. Wow. But it's more likely that it will fall into the hands of malicious actors, as the grieving father, Drew Crescente, discovered when he came across an AI chatbot as his murdered teenage daughter. The difference between these scenarios will be a matter of informed consent and strictly enforced identity protections. Neither Lou Reed nor Crescente's daughter, Jennifer Ann, are experiencing a true digital afterlife. Digital doubles are not an extension of consciousness, and it is unlikely they ever will be. But in practical terms, it won't matter whether a digital double is conscious, only that people interact with it as though it were. When Replica added safety measures and filters to its underlying chat GPT-3 model in early 2023, making it more difficult to engage in NSFW chat, it prompted a widespread outcry from users who had grown romantically attached to their chatbots. The Turing test, after all, is not a test of AI sentience. It is a test of human credulity. Making a legacy double may be an intentional choice. The late Ryuichi Sakamoto, for example, performed an hour-long piano concert at the Shed in New York in early June 2023, a few months after his death. The hologram version of Sakamoto, recorded with the artist's consent and participation in 2020, can play piano in perpetuity. The virtual me will not age and will continue to play the piano for years, decades, and centuries. Sakamoto said, "Will there be humans then?" It's a very, very interesting world that is just right around the corner here, right? This goes on to get into more and more of these scenarios. Let's do one more. The predictive self. Chip's dad always said there's a combination for everything. To get what you want, all you have to do is figure out the right words in the right order and say them to the right person. He was the king of the cold email back when people still wrote their own. So it's simple, Chip thinks. He just needs to try every combination on Donna until he hits on one that works. He'll pair Donna's public double to a generator and run every apology in the book, tweak the tone parameters until he lands on the right mix. Humble but not pathetic, sincere but not cutesy, honest but not too honest. He should find her forgiveness combination by Valentine's Day. If only the real Donna will return his calls. Will you be happy in your new job? How the pitch go? Could you ever win a political argument against your father-in-law? Perhaps a digital double or several could be useful in gaming out questions like these by allowing people to safely workshop interactions by proxy. Such role-playing would not strictly speaking be predictive, but it may serve as a form of emotional rehearsal, helping people to prepare for difficult conversations. Of course, this poses the risk of gamifying human relationships, reducing conversations to winnable transactions, and dooming us to a world of pickup artists and salesmen. The social app aspect offers a glimpse into this world. Its Instagram-like feed is entirely devoid of real users. Instead, AI bots respond to comments and DMs in a chorus of generated witticisms and encouragements. Of course, real social media platforms are overrun with bots too, but rather than helping their users workshop social interactions or taking the place of human interactions entirely, they serve more opaque political and commercial ends. The digital double may prove more productive as a tool for self-knowledge. A second self is a kind of mirror, after all. And given enough personal data, that mirror could become a crystal ball soon. Soon, thoughtful queries to a digital double might help identify our blind spots, cognitive biases, and latent motivations. In years to come, The double might guide our future actions by offering predictions or suggestions on what to do next. Of course, the usefulness of a digital double for prediction or productivity depends on its fidelity to the real thing. Nobody wants their interests represented by an unreliable, inaccurate, or incomplete bot. Herein lies the trouble. AI models can only generate responses based on their training data sets, which are by nature archives. But how a person behaves in the future or how it might react to a completely different novel input is rarely a linear extrapolation of their past experience. Life is funny that way. We often surprise ourselves. We are, after all, singular. This is a really interesting article, and it poses the question of training who we are to play roles in the world that are often mundane or time consuming. And there's a really fine line as to what the moral capacity of that is. That's number one. And number two, how much time do you actually have to spend in training those doubles and managing those doubles, monitoring those doubles? Does that become a job in and of itself, right? But it feels like with Uranus and Gemini, it's a bit of an inevitability. Like that's what we're going to run into. And this whole idea of self is going to explode. That the definition of self is going to be multifaceted. I'm not sure it'll be multidimensional, but it'll be multifaceted. And there are people who will take full advantage of this. I guarantee you, right? They'll figure it out and they'll have versions of who they are running mundane tasks online. But you don't know what happens or what can happen when these technologies all of a sudden begin to turn corners. And what happens if they start to act for you, is like the article proposes, they act for you in ways that are disingenuous or unreliable. Man, I mean, could you imagine having a conversation with that part of yourself? Like, why the fuck did you respond that way? I would never say anything like that. Oh, you would certainly say something like that. I know you would, because I've actually heard you say that to other people in private. Yeah, but I would never say that in public. Well, it's still a part of who you are. And every now and then, we all make mistakes, don't we? You made a mistake. You made a mistake. I just made a mistake. Doesn't that make me more human? Doesn't that make me more of a representation of you in some ways? I mean, you can see yourself arguing with yourself. Like, that's insanity. That's total insanity. But these are conversations that people are going to have. If you don't think Larry Ellison would want to have 5 versions of Larry Ellison that could handle mundane tasks, you'd be completely wrong. He would love it. Or Mark Zuckerberg, for instance. If you could get 4 or 5 Zuckerbergs to handle mundane tasks, and these people would love it. In many ways, it's the ultimate exercise in vanity to have versions of you doing, it's almost like you're digital slaves in some ways. It's quite bizarre, but I don't think we're that far from it. That's my take. And it's one of the things I kind of wanted to bring up tonight. And there's another version of this. This is from Motivity Labs. Let me bring this up here. And this is digital avatars and AI immortality, where memory meets marketing. And this is when the self lives on, right? And becomes what's the word I'm looking for? Interactive in the world once the person that represented that digital self is gone. Like, we're going to start to have really important discussions about, here, I'll give you an example. Let's use Clint Eastwood. Okay. Let's say we've all become so attached to Clint Eastwood. Not 95-year-old Clint Eastwood, whose birthday it is today, by the way. But let's say 50-year-old Clint Eastwood or 45-year-old Clint Eastwood. Right? He's become so ingrained in like our story or American cinema or American culture. And we know there's never, ever, ever going to be another Clint Eastwood like that. But what they do is they create a digital avatar of that version. And the digital avatar of that version is loaded with his memories, his lines from movies, like it is machine learned, and an AI replica where Clint Eastwood could be Clint Eastwood forever. Right? And let's say the Eastwood family signs off on it. And you could actually license the digital avatar of Clint Eastwood. Like, you could do that. Like, maybe they sign a deal and Clint Eastwood could pitch your products for you. That version of Clint Eastwood. I mean, these are all really, intense ethical and moral questions that we're going to have to answer. So let me go through some of this. Digital avatars are no longer science fiction. They're stepping into our world, shaped by AI, powered by data, and designed to replicate the essence of human behavior. These avatars are not just altering virtual interactions. They're becoming tools for preserving memory, extending identity, and transforming how brands engage with people. This convergence of technology and humanity is opening doors to something deeper than automation. As we move forward, it is reshaping memory and creating digital legacies. Additionally, it is ushering in an era where marketing is no longer just personalized. It is built to last forever. What are digital avatars? A digital avatar is a computer-generated representation of a real person. It can mimic voice, behavior, preferences, and personality. Some avatars are animated, others are photorealistic. What sets them apart today is their connection to artificial intelligence. These avatars can learn, adapt, and respond in real time. Digital avatars go beyond simply representing someone. These intelligent systems interact in ways that closely mirror real human behavior. Virtual assistants like Apple's Siri and Amazon's Alexa were early avatars. They were functional but limited in their capabilities. Now, platforms like Synthesia, Soul Machines, and Replica create digital humans, lifelike digital humans, that communicate emotionally and contextually. Digital avatars are appearing in meetings, customer service, advertising, and even grief counseling. They exist across platforms such as screens, the metaverse, and soon in augmented reality environments. The rise of AI immortality. Imagine capturing your essence, memories, speech patterns, preferences, quirks, and training an AI model on that data. Now imagine your loved ones speaking to a version of you years after you're gone. That is the foundation of AI immortality. AI can now transform personal content such as photos, voice notes, videos, and written memories into lifelike digital personas. These avatars do not just replay moments, they engage, respond, and preserve the emotional tone of the original person. The idea is simple: build a bridge between the past and the present using interactive memory. Families, educators, and organizations can use these avatars to preserve knowledge and emotion in ways that were never possible before. These avatars do not replace humans, they extend the emotional connection. As a result, these avatars serve as a living memory libraries. Statista reported that 57% of consumers are open to engaging with AI-powered services if they improve the human experience. This willingness is fueling the demand for emotionally intelligent avatars. Human memory fades, AI memory does not. Every photo, message, and video you've ever created becomes structured data. AI can analyze these assets to replicate your tone, thought patterns, and even personality. That is not just memory preservation, it is digital continuity. In this new framework, memory becomes searchable, contextual, and conversational. Want to revisit a childhood story told by a grandparent? Ask their digital avatar. Need your old self to train a new team? Let your AI twin take over. Memory transforms from passive storage into active engagement. Digital avatars are a form of self-extension. They allow you to be present without being there. You can attend multiple events at once. You can interact with clients across time zones. It is now possible to exist in spaces that I've never physically been in. The concept of distributed presence is revolutionizing identity. Your digital avatar can have its brand. It can grow smarter over time based on how people interact with it. The avatar can evolve independently from you. It is no longer just a replication. It is about digital evolution. Think about that for a second. You start off with a digital avatar that's you, right? And it's loaded with everything. All of your texts, all of your emails, all of your pictures, all your videos, like everything. Like it comprises all these different aspects of who you are because it's there, right? It digitally lives there. There's a record of it. There's a record of, like, how many times have I told stories about my past on YouTube? That would go into my digital avatar, right? And it would be able to access that. It would have a memory of that memory. But this is where it gets really like weird, okay? The weird part is when the digital avatar evolves and it lives on and through interaction with others, right? It can take on all of these different aspects, right? Who's to say that my digital avatar wouldn't be able to speak multiple languages? Like in the case of me, in this persona, speak one, English. But my digital avatar might be able to share my story with anybody in any language, right? And not just share it, but share it with nuance, right? To be able to tell my stories in Mandarin or Cantonese in a way that a Mandarin or Cantonese person would understand it. Like, we are in a completely brave new world here. And at a certain point, there's a part of us that not only lives on as a replica, but evolves in its own sort of digital dimension. And what kind of impact does that have on us in the afterlife? Like, are these things just completely, totally non-existent and devoid of each other? Right? Like, you have the afterlife and you go to wherever you go. Let's say you crack through the pleroma and you get to the God behind the God. let's say you get sucked into the false light and you get reincarnated, right? What would happen if through the reincarnation process, there is a digital avatar of who you are or were in a previous life, and you come across it and you go, you know what? That's really familiar to me. Why do I know this person? Why do I feel really drawn and kind of like activated by this person? Well, it's because it was you or a form of you, right? Or maybe the digital avatar is the equivalent of like an astral ghost. And that because it exists, and it exists in such an interactive way that it doesn't allow you to move on. That in some ways, you're actually tethered to your digital avatar and you don't even really know it, right? And then what happens if all of a sudden you have this strange connection with your digital avatar and you somehow form a link and a bond with it from the other side, and now you're interacting with your own digital avatar from the other side, and you're trying to communicate to people from it. Like, this thing could get really fucking weird because it's just all based on a signal. And we're just scratching the surface. And so I wanted to have a bit of a Uranus and Gemini show here so that we can, start to wrap our heads around where this is going. So these are two separate pieces, and in both pieces, they're talking in the short term about versions of you who can be in multiple places at once. Right? Both of these are talking. This other one is talking about the long-term version of you. And where does that land? Right? At what point do we reach this very strange and perilous line about there's something about when somebody passes away and the finality of when they pass away that immortalizes their work if they're really, really good. Like there will never be another Percy by Shelley, right? Never. There was one. There'll never be another William Blake. There was one. And because of that, their work takes on a profundity. It is an expression of their immortality because it is the thing that lives on after they've gone. Now, I'm not saying that we live in a world of Shelleys and Blakes, far from it. But this type of technology ensures that even if we did, their work would not be immortal. It would live on. It would live on in this avatar who would continue to create and evolve. Maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. I don't know, but we're entering into territory that we have like no footing in whatsoever. Like none whatsoever. And if you add Uranus and Gemini together with Pluto in Aquarius, like all of a sudden it gets really fucking powerful. Like really, really powerful. And even like Neptune and Aries, and this idea, like Aries being the self and the individual, and Neptune being this very nebulous field, right? This nebulous field which could exist in any realm. It could exist in the astral realm. It could exist in the physical realm. It could exist in the digital realm, right? That's the nature of Neptune. And right now, all three of those planets are in really tight orbs with one another. So all of this, everything that's happening is redefining the nature of identity and reality. And what's really interesting here is that when you kind of get into this area and you think about it and you explore the parameters of it and how a version of you can live on, and not just live on in a regurgitation of memory, but evolve, that is a really weird thing. Okay. And then you look around at humans now and what humans are doing now. And I could make a case that humans are de-evolving. Like when I go on Twitter, and maybe it's just my feed, I see some of the dumbest fucking conversations. Like really dumb. And I don't know if these people are bots or trolls or whether they've just, gone cult crazy. And it's just like, why are you even having this conversation? It's ridiculous. It's pointless. It's polarizing, right? You're sounding like a little fascist sock puppet. It's like these people that see Thomas Massey fishing in Costa Rica. They want to meet him back. They want to meet him somewhere, like when he lands. They want to string him up and hang him. I shit you not. I mean, these are the conversations I'm witnessing. It's like we're de-evolving into these tribal entities that are really ugly. And yes, some of that is digital and botted out. I totally get it. But it's also, some of these are just people who have decided, okay, well, this is who I am now. This is what I believe in. This is what I stand for. And their strength in numbers. Not all of them are just bots, right? And I'm watching this, and I'm watching these real selves de-evolve in real time. Meanwhile, the future has this potential of taking your digital avatar and evolving it into the future. It's a really weird place to be. A really, really weird place to be. And the way that I'm witnessing the physical world is that, they're making these decisions in some ways much easier for us. And even that is like, well, what's going on behind that? Like, why are those kinds of choices being prompted? You know what I mean? It's incentivizing us in some ways to kind of go down this path versus hanging out with the people on this path. It's very interesting when you think about it. Look, we're in a brave new fucking world. And it is just getting started. I think some of it could be very interesting. Very, very interesting. And some of it could be like game changing in terms of technologies. I was watching Jimmy Dore the other day, and there was this guy on there, and he was talking about how you could have something like the size of my cell phone, right? And it would have the same computing power. And it's being made right now by NVIDIA. And you get them for about $250. And it has the same AI computing power as a fucking data center. Like, that's happening right now. And when you think about that, it's like, well, why the fuck are we building all these data centers for? I mean, if that's true, and there was no reason why that this isn't true, it's a real product by NVIDIA, and you could actually run AI remotely on your phone or your computer. You don't have to go up into the cloud. You don't have to do any of it. You have your own, right? This is the world that we're headed towards, and the amount of speed that is going to be involved in changing our world. A lot of people are not going to be able to keep up with it. You know, I've talked about the old documentary by Alvin Toffler called Future Shock, where this is from the 70s, and it gets into what happens with people when people in the future engage with technology and mass information beyond their ability to handle and process it, and what it does to being human. You know, it's kind of this early prophetic warning about where all this is headed. And I remember seeing this in the 8th grade when I was in junior high school. There are some real dangers to this. And one of the things that I failed to talk about, and some of you know this story, is that there was this guy who sort of showed up near my doorstep and, you know, was kind of in this moment of peril. And I tried to help him out for a little while. And then I realized that he was absolutely crackers. I mean, crackers. And we share a friend, third-party friend. And I asked our third-party friend about this guy. And he said to me, and he meant this with not just 100% sincerity, but he also had the information to back it up. He said that his friend, the one who washed up on my, kind of near my front door, was suffering from what they call chat GPT psychosis. And if you look it up, it is an actual thing. Okay. Now, what's interesting, and we started the show off about Caitlin Clark with her sun in Aquarius and Pluto conjunct her sun. This guy's sun is at 0 Aquarius. I think he's born the same year as Caitlin Clark, probably the same day. And he's had Pluto on his sun. Pluto has absolutely destroyed him. It's destroyed this guy's identity. And I'll tell you how it's happened. Apparently, he started to get into heavy conversations with Chat GPT and all these other chatbots. And what they will do is that they will absolutely perform confirmation bias. If you rephrase and push them enough, they will perform confirmation bias. And this guy had spread his tentacles out so far over these AI clients that he was getting confirmation bias from all of them. And the confirmation bias that he got from them was that he is actually Q. And he believed this beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he was Q. Beyond a shadow of a doubt. Right? There was no well, you know what? I think I might be Q. You know, sometimes there was a time where I thought, I might have been Nostradamus in a past life. Sometimes I feel really connected to Nostradamus. I might be the reincarnation of Nostradamus. I've actually had those thoughts, but never once did I ever say that I was fucking Nostradamus. Right? This guy believes he's Q. And this is what the technology has done. the voices in his head created confirmation bias. And he was probably prone to some form of schizophrenia, and technology did the rest. Right. So this is what I'm talking about. Like, we are not, how prepared are we to deal with what's coming? Right. Like, some of it could be really cool. Some of it might actually include, cheaper, freer forms of energy. Maybe that's part of the deal. It's been a long time coming. Maybe that's part of the deal. Maybe somewhere in this mix, we do get to elevate. We do get to have some other kind of experience with technology that might be more liberating than it is in terms of creating a digital prison. That's yet to be determined, right? Yet to be determined. But we're not really ready for it. We are not really ready for it. And we're just dipping our toes in the water. I went back to 1859, and there was some really interesting stuff happening in 1859. And I wanted to bring this up here. This is one of the, so we had Uranus and Gemini take place in, I think it was 1942. And it's all like World War II shit, right? Like, everything. There are some interesting things, but they're clouded by World War II stuff. I've looked at this year before, and it's a really fascinating year because this is, again, a Uranus and Gemini cycle. So it's a 7-year cycle, and it's going to end in 1866. And one of the things that's really interesting, of course, Olympia is incorporated into Washington. Olympia is an Aquarian city. If you've ever lived in Olympia, you'll know it's an Aquarian city. I lived there. It's fucking Aquarian to the max, right? But this is really, really, really fascinating here. Oregon becomes the 33rd state. That's interesting. But where is it? The nation's first zoo gets founded on March 21st. Again, Uranus and Gemini, and capturing, various species of things, and usually by twos, so that they can reproduce, right? But the novel, A Tale of Two Cities, is published on April 30th with Uranus and Gemini, A Tale of Two Cities, right? And it's talking about Paris and London during the French Revolution. So this is a Dickens novel, famous Dickens novel, worst of times, best of times, like very Gemini stuff, right? So that happens in 1859. And there are two other things that happened in 1859 that are equally interesting and part of this Uranian sort of story. This isn't one of them, but it's kind of a subtext. Ferdinand II of the two Sicilies is succeeded by his 23-year-old son, Francis II. So there were two Sicilies at that time, very Uranus and Gemini, right? But what we're really, Big Ben, today's Big Ben's birthday. Happy birthday, Big Ben. Happy birthday. Right there. So Big Ben started on May 31st in 1859. And it's been ticking ever since. Okay. There's a couple of events here that are really, really, really interesting. So July 11th, they get the chimes hooked up in Big Ben's chimes. So between August 28th and September 2nd, there is a solar storm, and it's the largest solar storm recorded in history. And the northern lights can be seen as far south as Colombia. We have the Carrington event. To me, that's really mind-blowing, right? We have the Carrington event happen during Uranus and Gemini. And it's one of those things where I don't really think we fully understand the impact of that event. We talk about like Tartaria and these other civilizations and like what happened to them. And I pretty much draw a circle around August 28th, September 2nd. There's a lot that we don't understand about the Carrington event. And it's almost like there's like this one world, and then there's this other world that happens. You know what I mean? It has that bit of that feel. It's all in that kind of 1850s area where everything starts to get kind of fuzzy, right? But there's some other stuff here. Now, this is interesting. On November 24th, English naturalist Charles Darwin publishes On the Origin of Species, a book which argues for the gradual evolution of species through natural selection. It immediately sells out on its initial print run. I mean, think about that, right? So before Darwin, we had the biblical version of how the world was started, right? I mean, and there might have been other naturalists that chimed in as well. We got this. But really, like prior to Darwin, it's all pretty, on the first day, on the second day kind of stuff, right? And then you have a bunch of church scholars who chime in and, try to bring reason and logic into this whole idea of creation. And Darwin just takes a hard fucking left and says, oh, no, this is how it all happened right here. Right. And it's a Uranus and Gemini publication. It's like, so now we've got these two tracks of the story of being human, or how we became human and how life evolved on the planet. And Darwin's, takes off like a rocket. So when you look at that, okay, just keep that in mind. When you look at that, like that changes everything. That book On the Origin of Species changes everything from that point forward. Like humanism and science and this idea that people can't just trust what's written in the quote unquote holy book, right? It becomes like it's the beginning of like academia and science and humanism. It's huge. It redefines who we are as central characters in the story of the universe. And I bring this up because here we are again, Uranus and Gemini, all these years later. And what are we talking about? We're talking about disclosure. We're talking about like aliens. It is, we have never been so close as to having a national / international discussion about this. Like they have been gradually working up to this point. And it would be, in some ways, as radical and jarring as the origin of the species by Darwin was at that time. I mean, for some people, Darwin was heresy, absolute heresy, right? And we're kind of poised in some ways to kind of, have the same thing happen, but from a very different perspective, right? The origin of species. Oh, well, yeah, we created you. Yeah, you're actually part of us. The origin of your species is connected to our species. Like, good luck with that. You thought the church had a hard time with Darwin. Wait till this other shit starts coming down. And this is right at the beginning of Uranus and Gemini. Darwin is really important in defining this narrative that is completely and utterly contrarian to one that's built on belief. It's as alien in some ways at that time as a disclosure moment would be for us under Uranus and Gemini now. And that's why I'm bringing it up. In some ways, it is the doppelganger of the new story that I believe we're about to be told. Whether it's real or not, whether it's a distraction or not, who the fuck knows, right? But based on this Darwinian manual of evolution, we are very close to having the next iteration of that. Okay, there was one other thing that I thought was really interesting here. And there's a guy that discovers a planet that is orbiting inside of Mercury. And they actually call it Vulcan. Where is this? It happens in 1859. Where is it? Hold on. I know it's in here somewhere. We got the solar storm. Yes. We got, how about the data known? Karl Marx. Let me just do a quick search here. Hold on. Yeah, okay. Right there. March 26th, French amateur astronomer Edmond Modeste Lescarbot claims to have noticed a planet closer to the sun than Mercury, later named Vulcan. What I find interesting about that, of course, Mercury is the planetary ruler of Gemini. So they found another planet, right? This guy found another planet inside of Mercury. So it was very kind of, oh, isn't this shocking, kind of Uranus and Gemini. Now, what's interesting is that he's not the only guy, right? There are other people who came across the same thing. Now, at some point, it was kind of discredited, but so here's Mercury, and Vulcan was right here, and very difficult to see at times. But there are other people besides this guy who claim to have seen this, like Christoph Scheiner had claimed to have seen it. the Bavarian physician astronomer Franz von Paula Grutheisen. There were a number of people, Jacques Babinet, right, suggested there would be incandescent clouds of a planetary kind circling the sun, proposed the name Vulcan. Thomas Dick, Leverrier's prediction. There were a number of old astronomers who kind of agreed, right, that they saw something very similar between Mercury and the sun. And each of them were convinced that this planetary body was Vulcan. So again, very Uranus and Gemini, that there would be this other body, this other celestial form that would basically kind of share the same gravitational field in some ways as Mercury. It'd be like Mercury's other. And it makes total sense, right? Like that would be the ruling planet of Virgo. It would be the ruling planet of Virgo, and Mercury wouldn't have to share two signs anymore. Like if we could somehow, like maybe I don't know, these guys seem to have figured it out. They all kind of agreed that they had seen something, that something had caught their attention other than Mercury, right? I don't know if they shut that door, if it's verboten, but I think it's really interesting. And it's this year in 1856 where strange shit happens. You have like the Tale of Two Cities and Revolution, of course, being part of the French Revolution with Uranus. You have this weird kind of Carrington event that is really downplayed and sort of, knocks out telegraph wires. Like, what else did it really do? Then you have Darwin's evolution of the species, which completely creates this biblical counter narrative, which influences academia and science and naturalism for decades after that. It's kind of been debunked in a lot of ways because they've never been able to find an intermediary species. But for a very long time, right, not only does it infuse the sciences, but it also in some ways strips away sort of the moral authority of religion. There's a great movie called Inherit the Wind with Frederick March and Spencer Tracy. And Spencer Tracy plays Clarence Darrow, and Frederick March plays Huey Long. And it's the Scopes monkey trial. It's a great movie. But at the end of the day, what it does is it codifies Darwin in a lot of ways. It codifies Darwin. It's a great movie, though. Everybody should watch it. There was one other thing I wanted to talk about tonight, kind of lighthearted and humorous. And it has to do with Brad Pitt. And it's kind of a Uranus and Gemini thing because it's a cream that shares a similar name. Okay. And I'm gonna bring this up for you guys for humor because I think you'll find it funny. We'll end on a little humor tonight. Penis cream company sues Brad Pitt over skincare line name. Penis cream company Beau D has filed a lawsuit against Brad Pitt for renaming his new skincare line Beau Domain, claiming that Pitt's new name is too familiar and infringes on their trademark. Pitt, who owns a French winery, Chateau Miraval, launched a skincare company in 2022 in partnership with a French winemaking family, with products based on wine and grapes. Their skincare line was originally called Le Domaine. But Pitt and his associates recently changed the name to Beau Domain. This change, though, put them at odds with Malibu-based Beau D Penis Cream Company. Beau D said they tried to contact Pitt and crew several times to work out a solution, but were rebuffed. So off to court they go, according to page 6. The Malibu Penis Cream Company, which sells this product for $56, say they want $75,000 in damages and want a court to bar Pitt from using the new Beau Domain name. Penis Company founder Brandon Palace, former Men's Vogue and Teen Vogue staffer, advertises his Creme Penas as a product that will put power in your package. Palace further alleges that his cream will help to bring plumpness to that skin, inspire collagen production, and slow down the process of aging. Palace is clearly hoping this case will result in a big payday and just won't peter out. Neither Pitt nor Beau Domain have made a statement on the lawsuit. So there you go. A little bit of humor there with a penis cream company. If you want to see the penis cream, it's right here. Beau D, right there. I happened to look it up. Creme Penas. Actually has some pretty good ingredients if you get down to it. All those ingredients. Tribulus. What is this? Semen cuscatate extract. I don't know what that is. Morinda root. What else we got there? Some aloe. Curcuma longa. Orzi sativa. There's a lot in there. Panax ginseng. Epidemium grandiflorium flower, leaf, stem, extract, asparagus, rasmosis, root extract. Maybe they should send some of this to Brad. Maybe you might want to partner share. Anyway, a little Uranus and Gemini fun for you. Okay, we've been at it for about 2.5 hours. That should be about enough. So thanks for being here. Thanks for exploring the parameters of identity with Uranus and Gemini and the high strange for the potential of our future selves and our digital avatars and all of the incomprehensible consequences that could result from something like that. And if you are interested or you purchased a reading, you can reach out to me at robert@robertphoenix.com. Real simple. robert@robertphoenix.com. And I also have the Quo number that you can text me or call me at. Those are the two best ways to get a hold of me. Okay? All right. Thanks for being here. I hope you enjoyed yourselves tonight. Plenty of food to think about. And I hope you have a weird, wild, and wonderful week ahead with all of this wacky Gemini energy. You will not be disappointed. You will be flooded with novel complexity and high strange. And may it inspire you. All right. Thanks for being here. Love you all. Take good care of yourselves. Your many selves. Robert Phoenix signing off. Bye for now.